big purchases, but that's not what I'm looking for. We're looking for the big deal. We've taken it to this level. We're taking in billions and billions of dollars of tariffs. China's devalued their currency, and they're putting out a lot of money into their economy. And they have a very bad economy right now, and I don't want them to have a bad economy, but it's the worst in, they say, 57 years. 2 weeks ago it was the worst in 22 years. Now it's 57 years, and it's only going to get worse. Their supply chain is being broken up very badly, and companies are leaving because they can't pay the 25, soon to go to 30% tariff. And we have 30% very shortly on $250 billion. We have another tariff at a slightly smaller number, as you know, on about $300 billion worth of goods and products. So they would like to do something. As you know, we're talking a little bit this week, talking a lot next week, and then top people are going to be speaking the week following. But I'm not looking for a partial deal. I'm looking for a complete deal.
Do you feel you need that deal before the election, sir?
No, I don't think I need it before the election. I think people know that we're doing a great job. I've rebuilt the military. Scott and I were talking about that. We spent $1.5 trillion. When I came in, our military was depleted. Frankly, we didn't have ammunition, okay? But our military was in very bad shape. We've rebuilt the military. We've got one of the strongest economies. Mike Pence actually got some, who's right here, a great vice president. He was talking yesterday, and he called me. He says, boy, these numbers, these consumer numbers are incredible. The retail numbers that came out 2 days ago that really weren't reported were really, I mean, just incredible numbers. You know that very well. That's your world. And some other numbers. We're doing very well. Our economy is very strong. And China is being affected very badly. We're not. We're not being affected. In fact, we're taking in many billions of dollars. And China's eating that. You know, China's eating the tariffs because of the devaluation. Now, that doesn't happen with all countries. China's China. And they know what they're doing as well as anybody. My relationship with President Xi is a very amazing one, very good one. But we have right now a little spat. But I think we're doing very well. Our country is doing well. You look at so many different things. Look at all of the regulation cutting that allows us to do what we did. Look at what happens 3 days ago where you have an attack like that, and it takes out a big chunk of oil, and the price goes up $4, $5, and now it's heading down rapidly. That tells you that would have happened years ago. It would have gone up $50. It would have doubled. And this was a blip. So it's been really amazing what we've been able to do. I think the voters understand that. I don't think it has any impact on the election. Now, if something happened, I think that would probably be a positive for the election, but that's okay. I do think signing USMCA on a bipartisan basis with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and everybody else, very bipartisan. I think that's very important for our country. And I would certainly be willing to say that's a bipartisan deal. But I think that's very important for our manufacturers, for our farmers, even for unions. They want that deal done. And so hopefully that's going to be put up to a vote very soon. There'll be very little cajoling of the Democrats because most Democrats want it too. But the USMCA is ready to be voted on. It's finished. Mexico has taken their final votes. Canada is willing to do that anytime we want them to. They're all set to go. And we need that for we need that for our country. It's a great deal. It's a great deal. Thank you.
And for the Prime Minister, sir, your economy is to some degree caught in the cross-currents between the United States and China. What did you say to the President about what your ideal outcome is here for a China trade agreement between the United States and China?
Well, thank you. Look, obviously, we're keen to see the United States and China be able to come to an agreement. But what is always necessary is deals have got to be fair, deals have got to be good deals, deals have got to be sustainable deals. And I think one of the things we've seen, Australia has benefited greatly from the economic growth of China. We have a comprehensive strategic partnership with China and a free trade agreement with China. And they have grown and they have become, a substantive economy in the world. And once you sort of get into that level, then you need to be able to be playing to the same rules as those other developed nations. And I think this is, the new generation of deals I think we'll see China do, which the President has been working on, and he's been working on it for some time, and we wish him well in that process. There are some real serious issues that have to be addressed in that deal. Things like intellectual property, that's a big issue, and it needs to be addressed. So we look forward to them achieving it, and that providing, I think, the broader certainty and stability to the global economy, which all nations will benefit from.
And we could do, Scott, a very big deal with China, and it could go very quickly, as you know, but it wouldn't be the appropriate deal. We have to do it right, and it's a very complicated deal with intellectual property protection. We have to do that, and other things. I could leave lots out and have a deal very quickly, but we want to do it right. Please.
Yeah, sure. Andrew.
I assume Andrew is a nice person. That's why you chose
Mr.
him.
President, the best. Thank you very much for hosting us. Also on China and tariffs, what do you say to Australian businesses and to Australian people who say that your trade war with President Xi threatens their prosperity? And to the Prime Minister, a linked question. Do you think that Australians are going to be collateral damage in President Trump's tariff war with China?
Well, first of all, I look at numbers. I love numbers, and the numbers of Australia are doing incredibly well. You're doing unbelievably well. When we have a deal with China or not, but when we have a deal with China because they want to make it perhaps more than I want to make it, because I actually love all that billions of dollars that's pouring into our treasury. Billions and billions of dollars. We've never seen that before from China. It's always been the other way. And I'm taking care of our farmers out of that. We're helping our farmers. Our farmers were targeted, and they were targeted for $16 billion, and I made that up to them. We paid them the $16 billion and had tens of billions of dollars left over. So I will say, though, that Australia is doing very well. If we do end up doing a deal, Australia will do even better. And we were discussing that, but Australia will be one of the big beneficiaries of a deal. And in the meantime, as you know, I did tariff relief with respect to a certain product in particular coming out of Australia. And that's something that we wouldn't do for anybody else. This has been a truly great ally, and we work very well together. But your numbers are absolutely fantastic. Your economy is strong like ours. And I think we're two real examples of two countries doing extremely well. Some countries aren't doing so well. That's Europe true. Is not doing well. Asia is not doing. Large parts of Asia are not doing well. China's not doing well. Please.
Thanks. Mr. President, Australia is in its 29th year of consecutive economic growth, which is an extraordinary national achievement, and we will continue to grow as our most recent national accounts demonstrated. Australia is also very used to dealing with a complex and changing world, and that's why we're diversifying our trade base and have been doing that for many years. I mean, 6 years ago, when our government came to office, 27% of our trade was covered by agreements around the world. That figure is now 70%, and we're going to take that to 90%. And that's important, and that's opening up opportunities. So there are ebbs and flows that go in the global economy, and Australia has built up a resilience through the broad-based nature in which we're taking our economy to the world. I mean, Australia has never got rich selling things to itself, and we've always had an outward-looking perspective when it comes to engaging our economic opportunities. And a big part of what we've been discussing here is some new opportunities, whether it's in the rare earths, the critical minerals, the frontier technologies, space. You know, this is where jobs are going to be in the future as well. And so we will deal with those ebbs and flows as they come. But the President's right. The arrangement they will come to, and I'm confident they will, with China, will be one that will set, a new bar in terms of how China's economy then deals with a lot of these complicated issues in the future with developed economies like Australia. So we look on with interest, and I think ultimately when we arrive at that point, it's going to put global trade on a stronger footing.
And Australia's really been so focused on the economy. They do minerals. They have incredible wealth in minerals and coal and other things. And they're really at the leading edge of coal technology. It's clean coal, we call it, clean coal, but it's also great for the workers. And things that would happen because it was very dangerous years ago and very bad for a lot of people And you've rectified that 100%. It's incredible. I looked at your statistics the other day, and coal miners are very, very safe in Australia. It's incredible what you've done. In fact, we're looking at what you've done.
We can do a deal on that.
I want to. We'll do a deal. We'll make a deal. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you. In the midst of these escalating tensions with Iran, you've now named a new national security advisor, Robert O'Brien.
Yes.
What is he recommending to you in terms of dealing with the latest strikes on Saudi Arabia and the response? And then secondly, you announced new sanctions on Iran. Secretary Mnuchin said that this affects the last available funds for that regime. Have we now exhausted sanctions in regards to Iran?
Well, these are the strongest sanctions ever put on a country. We are at a level of sanction that is far greater than ever before with respect to Iran. Today we did central bank, as you know, and we'll see. We'll see. They're having a lot of problems, not only with us, they're having problems within their own country, and I think they have a lot of self-made problems. We are by far the strongest military in the world. Going into Iran would be a very easy decision, as I said before, be very easy, the easiest thing. Most people thought I would go in within 2 seconds, but plenty of time, plenty of time. In the meantime, they have a lot of problems within Iran. Iran could be a great country, could be a rich country, but they are choosing to go a different way. There'll be a point at which they'll be very sorry for that choice. But I think I'm showing great restraint. A lot of people respect it. Some people don't. Some people say, oh, you should go in immediately. And other people are so thrilled at what I'm doing. And I don't do it for anybody. I do it for what's good for the United States, what's good for our allies. And it's working out really very well. As far as Robert is concerned, Robert, maybe you could stand up. Robert O'Brien has done a fantastic job for us with hostage negotiations. I think we can say that there has never been anybody that's done better than you and I as a combination. We've brought many people home, and we brought them home quickly. Speed is a very important thing I find with hostages. It's really something. I had dinner the other night with the Warmbier family, an incredible family. The whole family and some of Otto's friends, in addition to the family. We had 25 people over on Saturday night, and we did that dinner in Otto's honor. And it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing. First Lady and I, it was very, it was very touching and really very beautiful. We talked about Otto. And I will tell you that people should have moved faster. And Robert and I were talking about that. He should have moved faster. He was there for a long time. You got to move fast. With hostages, you have to move fast. All of a sudden, it gets very hard for the other side to do anything. And sometimes it's just too late. In the case of Otto, it was very late. We got him home, but he was in horrible, horrible condition. What happened to him was actually incredible, just horrible. But you have to move fast. Robert and I have been really successful. And the reason I know him so well, I actually work hard on hostages. I think you would say. I think most presidents wouldn't do that, but I do. These are great, I guess in almost all cases, American lives. We help other people also. We've also helped other countries with their hostage situation where we have some strength that they don't. But these are great people, and we get them home. We got them home from North Korea, as you know, and we got them home from a lot of different locations, Egypt. We get them home. We get them home from many different locations. Turkey. Yeah. President Erdogan was very good, and we got a hostage home. Our great pastor, who everyone in this room knows and loves. But we've had tremendous success. And what surprised me, I didn't know too many people knew Robert. And when it came time to pick somebody for the position, it's a very critical time. I had so many people, I shouldn't say this in front of Robert, he'll be embarrassed, but I had so many people that called me and they recommended Robert O'Brien. So I think he's going to do a great job. And he was here, I can tell you this, he started about 12 minutes after he was chosen. He sat in with us, and he's very much involved now in what we're doing.
One quick follow-up on that in regards to Iran. If sanctions don't work and they continue their malign activity, are there any other measures outside of a military option that can be taken?
Well, I don't want to talk about that, but I will say I think the sanctions work and the military would work, but that's a very severe form of winning. But we win. Nobody can beat us militarily. Nobody can even come close. What we've done for our military in the last 3 years is incredible. All made in the USA, by the way. And it's really incredible. Our nuclear was getting very tired. They hadn't spent the money on it, and now we have it in, as we would say, tippy-top shape. Tippy-top. We have new and we have renovated, and it's incredible, and we all should pray that we never have to use it. We should never have to use it. And our military itself is in phenomenal shape. And we have a great gentleman, as you know, going to be taking over, Joint Chief of Staff. Joe Dunford has been fantastic. He's a great man and a friend of mine. But General Milley is going to be taking over, and it's going to be, we're going to have a little bit of a celebration, both for Joe and for everybody. And, as you know, our Secretary of Defense has just come in, Mark Esper, and he's been here for a short period of time, but he's got tremendous energy. He's got it. He knows it. That's what he's been doing for a long period of time, from the day he graduated, or maybe I should say from the day he started at West Point, where he was a top scholar, etc. So we have incredible people, and Steve Mnuchin's here. We did the sanctions today, and I think they're probably, Steve, the strongest that have ever been put on a country. We will certainly never do that to Australia, I promise you.
Then one for the Prime Minister, if I may. Mr. Prime Minister, you have been very tough on Huawei, even under pressure. You've been very consistent with the ban, even though you've said you have a good working relationship with China and they're important for your economy. Do you plan to continue to support the United States in the tough stance on China? And can you give any more specifics about what you've told the President you would do to help in his measures to reach a fair trade deal?
Well, first of all, I mean, we have the most perfect of relationships with the United States, and goes back a century and more, as the President was reminding us on the lawn this morning. We have a comprehensive strategic partnership with China. This is the part of the world in which we live, and managing that relationship is important to Australia's national interests. One thing I can always assure you, and I think the President can say the same, we will always, both of us, act in the national interests of our countries. We will always put our country's interests first, and that means engaging countries in our own region, not just economically, but at a people-to level as well. We have a lot of operations we do together right across the world, militarily, and we'll continue to do those. But the focus, I think, at the end of the day, has to be what's best for our people. And that means a stable, secure region, and the presence of the United States in the Indo-Pacific, where they have been for a very long time, is a stabilising force in the region. And what does that mean? It means that countries can trade with each other, economies can develop, people come out of poverty. The United States has had a positive presence in our region. And that's why we always work together, because we share objectives. It isn't a matter of the United States saying to us, we need you to do this, or Australia saying to the United States, we need you to do this. It's about us having shared objectives and looking through the world through a similar lens. And so that just naturally brings us together to focus on the things that promote prosperity. As I started out in my remarks today, we love jobs, the President and I. We love jobs. And we like them jobs here, and we like jobs everywhere. And when people have jobs, well, they tend to focus a bit more on the things that are going on in their lives every day, and making sure they can live peacefully with each other.
And one of the things important, I think, is during our meeting, we discussed, I said, what percentage of your military do you buy from us? And the answer was we work it together. Yeah. Or it's about 100%. It's close to 100%, and we make the best equipment. He understands that, but it's a real relationship. They buy 100% of their military, and it's a massive purchase, and it's gotten bigger. I guess you said the biggest purchase since World War II.
Yeah, we'll be at 2% of GDP next year, and that comes up from what was the lowest level defence spending as a share of the economy since prior to the Second World War. So it's a $200 billion investment, and a lot of that's being built in Australia, but it's also being built in partnership with the United States and other allies. So it's an important part of what we're doing. But I think David Crowe from Australia was next.
Thank you very much. David Crowe from the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Further on the questions on Iran, Mr President, you've praised the Australian commitment today to deal with Iran in the Persian Gulf. And in your talks today with Mr Morrison, did you discuss further military action in order to keep the pressure on Iran? What might those military actions be, and what could Australia contribute to that?
So
and
we
Mr
didn't-
Morrison,
Yeah.
on that same
Hold it
issue,
1 second. You'll get a second, Craig. You get a shot at your Prime Minister. I'm sure you're looking forward to it. We didn't discuss too much Iran. We discussed more trade, more China. We discussed Afghanistan, where Australia is helping us, and we're slowly reducing in Afghanistan, as people know. We've been very effective in Afghanistan, and if we wanted to do a certain method of war, we would win that very quickly. But many, really tens of millions of people would be killed. And we think it's unnecessary. But Australia's been a great help to us in Afghanistan. But we're reducing in Afghanistan. We're reducing in Syria, where we had, we've taken over 100% of the caliphate. We have 100%. When I came in, it was smaller, but it was a mess. It was all over, and now it's in a position, and I won't repeat what I said before with the prisoners, but we have thousands of ISIS fighters from our work in capturing 100% of the caliphate. And we're asking the countries from where they came, whether it's Germany or France or other countries, to take those people back, put them on trial, do what they have to do with them. But the United States will not keep thousands and thousands of people for the next possibly 50 years or whatever it may be. It's going to be up to those countries. We did them a big favor. We went in. We took them down. The ISIS fighters, in the end, weren't very good fighters against the United States. But we have thousands of them, and we want them to be taken over by Germany, France, and all of those countries from where they came. Okay?
Thank you. And Mr Morrison, on the same issue of Iran, are you open to further military action against Iran, or is the Australian commitment solely contained to a freedom of navigation patrol exercise?
Well, as the President said, I mean, there are no further activities planned or requested for assistance from Australia. So the question to that extent is moot. And I want to commend the President, who's demonstrating, as he said in the earlier press conference in the Oval Office, restraint. There are other measures that he and the Secretary have announced today, and they are pursuing those channels. So the calibrated, I think, very measured response that the United States is taking has been a matter for them, and obviously at any time when issues are raised with us as an ally, we consider them on their merits at the time in Australia's national interest. So I think that's where that's heading.
Well, thank you very much. And Jennifer, thank you very much. First Lady, thank you. And I hope you're going to be able to see tonight to the media, because really it's going to be a beautiful evening in honor of Australia and the Morrisons. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're watching live coverage of President Trump's press conference with the visiting Australian Prime Minister here at the White House, Scott Morrison, ahead of a state dinner tonight. The two leaders talking extensively today about negotiations with China. The Australians tied up in that trade deal the president is trying to negotiate. Also talking, as you heard from President Trump there, about the U.S. and Australian commitment in Afghanistan, freedom of navigation with respect to the Iranians and those incidents there over in the Persian Gulf. And President Trump also taking some questions there about his new national security advisor, Robert O'Brien. The president praising O'Brien for helping him achieve a number of successful hostage negotiations over the past few years. O'Brien, a Republican lawyer, relative unknown, taking his moment in the spotlight there. Hello, everyone. I'm Devin Dwyer in Washington. Thanks for joining us today on ABC News Live. I want to bring in our chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl, who was there for the press conference. John, the president talking a lot about China, and I will ask you about that in a second, but the big headline so far this morning seems to be the president's response to these new questions about this whistleblower and what sort of a phone call he may have had related to the Ukraine. He's certainly not showing much skin on that one.
No, that did not come up in this press conference, but shortly before this press conference, the president brought the press in for his one-on-one meeting with the Australian Prime Minister, and there he did take several questions on this, but as you said, didn't really reveal much. He said that the whistleblower in question here, the whistleblower at the DNI, was a partisan whistleblower. No detail as to why he's saying that. How does he know that? He was asked if he knew who it was, and he said he didn't actually know the name of the whistleblower. You know, that is the big story here today is what exactly was going on. The president said he did nothing wrong in his conversations with the president of Ukraine. But the unanswered question, Devin, is if that is so, and if there is nothing to this complaint, why is his Justice Department preventing the Inspector General at the DNI from turning this information over to Congress? And I would have asked, if I had been given the question, a chance to ask a question, why would the president consider turning over the transcript of his telephone call with the Ukrainian president? If it was, again, he did nothing wrong and it was a wonderful conversation, why not clear it up?
Exactly, John. I also asked a couple of times there whether or not he talked about former Vice President Joe Biden as part of those conversations. He didn't answer those questions either. So much speculation about what may be going on there. I'm sure much more to come. The other big headline, of course, as you know, was this new announcement of what the president says are the strongest sanctions ever with respect to Iran. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, he's got the new Iranian sanctions. He was asked if there are any further sanctions he could do. It is, of course, you know, perhaps the most highly sanctioned country in the world in terms of U.S. sanctions. This is, as the president was facing questions, whether or not he is considering a military response to the Iranian attack on the Saudi oil refinery. The president was asked again about that, made it clear that he is taking this in a measured way. He said, you know, military response is clearly not ruled out, but this did not sound like a president who was getting ready to engage in a military response to what Iran did in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, he sure seems to be walking back that tough talk about being locked and loaded. The Saudis echoing that as well, John. Finally, a lot of talk there at the press conference about China, this trade deal, and the negotiations that are dragging on. The president didn't seem too bothered by the fact that this could drag on past the election. He said no deal by the election wouldn't hurt him. What do you think?
Absolutely. He also was asked whether or not China's agreement to buy some more U.S. agricultural goods, would that be enough? And he was emphatic no. He said he wants a big deal, and he's not going to settle on a partial deal, even if that means this remains unresolved until after the election. You know, we'll see what this does to the U.S. economy, Devin. That's the big question. The president repeated something we've heard from him several times, which is he doesn't mind tariffs. He kind of likes tariffs. He says they bring in billions of dollars into the U.S. Treasury. Well, you know, as you know, there are many economists who would question that formulation and point to the negative impact that tariffs have on the U.S. economy, and an impact which we may already be seeing. But for the president, you know, at least the public posture is, if he can't get the big deal, if he can't get all the concessions he wants out of China, he's fully prepared to continue with this, continual escalation of sanctions. I mean, sorry, of tariffs.
Of tariffs, and we will see if the political impact of those tariffs hitting some of those states he needs to win in 2020 will bear themselves out. Jon Karl, our chief White House correspondent. Thanks so much, John. Happy Friday to you, and thank you for watching us here on ABC News Live today. Special coverage of President Trump's press conference with the visiting Australian Prime Minister. They will have a state dinner later this evening. We'll have a full wrap-up at 3:30 Eastern Time this afternoon here in the briefing room on ABC News Live. Until then, I'm Devin Dwyer in Washington. Have a good day.
ABC News, straightforward.
As we fly over ground zero.
Almost every home here has sustained damage. Everything has just been wiped out.
I'm glad you're okay.